All right, so I'm sure all of you remember Tulsi Gabbard. She ran as a Democrat in 2020. She tried to position herself roughly aligned with the Bernie wing of the Democratic Party, you know, the left flank, the ones that are more progressive. Her whole thing was like, I'm anti-war. I'm the anti-war candidate. This is how she portrayed herself. This is my lane. I'm the anti-war person, similar to Bernie. In 2016, I believe she stepped down from the DNC because she thought they were rigging it for Hillary and she wanted to show support for Bernie. Anyway, so you know who she is. Well, for quite a while now, she's been on a long, slow, but sure transition into a new lane for herself. She realized there's not really a future for her in the Democratic Party because the corporate Democrats had gone after her ruthlessly and basically said she's a foreign agent and she's corrupted by Russia and she's whatever. They had 1,000 different ways they went after her. And so it seems like she sensed, I don't really have a future in this party and I want to be relevant and I want to have a future. So what she did is the old, I'm the last sane liberal left. And then it's like why I left the left. And I remember the day that I was fully convinced, okay, the transition is complete. It was when we were debating Build Back Better, when the bill was coming up. And she went on Fox News and she argued from a standard conservative Republican perspective. She argued, this is big spending. This is going to add to the debt. This is going to add to the deficit. We can't have something like this. And again, if you went through the bill at the time, it was all like, hey, let's lower Medicare to give more people health care, right? Like this is what was in the bill. It was all positive things. Extend the child tax credit. These are all things that when she ran in 2020, she would have supported these things. But just total flip on a dime. She became a right-wing media darling. And now here we are, right? So she comes out and does a little commentary after we learn that Joe Biden is stepping down, and it's very likely going to be Kamala Harris to replace her. And boy, oh boy, do I have a lot to say about what she says here.
Hey, everybody. I just got here to Rome, where I'm going to be joining a dialogue and forum on peace, security, and prosperity for the Western Hemisphere in Europe. I just saw the news flash like everybody else. President Biden's no longer running for re-election, and he's endorsed Kamala Harris to be the Democratic nominee for president and commander-in-chief. I'm going to sound the same warning now that I have been for years, going all the way back to 2020 when both Kamala and I were running for president on the Democratic.
Okay, but in 2020, you were a totally different person. You were attacking her from a left-wing perspective. One of the things she hit her for is that she locked up people for marijuana use, right? This is not who you are now. You don't care about these issues now. You don't have this position now. So, I'm going to sound the alarm as if you've been consistent the whole time. You're a totally different person than you were back then. You'd be attacking her from a different perspective. All right, here we go.
She is unfit and unqualified to be our president and commander-in-chief and would be incredibly dangerous in that position. The prospect of Kamala Harris making decisions about war and peace and where to send my brothers and sisters in uniform into harm's way is not only terrifying to us, it should be terrifying to every American, knowing that we would all pay the price for her dangerous actions and dangerous decisions. Everything you've heard me say about Hillary Clinton, the queen of warmongers, can also be said of Kamala Harris. There should be no question in your mind that if Kamala is allowed to be our president and commander-in-chief, she'll be the maidservant of this queen of warmongers.
She'll be the maidservant of Hillary Clinton, the queen of warmongers? She'll be the maidservant of her. Let's let it play out, and then I have quite a response.
This elitist cabal of warmongers that has gotten us...
Elitist cabal of She supports Trump. Elitist cabal of warmongers. You want to talk about an elitist cabal of warmongers? Let's do that in a minute.
They're the ones who've been calling the shots behind Joe Biden's presidency. They would continue to call the shots if Kamala Harris is president. And where have they led us? To the brink of war with multiple countries in all parts of the world, and closer to the brink of nuclear war and Armageddon now than ever before. The choice for us is very clear. If we cherish peace and freedom, and if we love our country, we must vote against Kamala Harris in this election on November 5th and vote for Donald Trump.
She brings up the elitist cabal of warmongers, all these people who want war. I just want peace. I'm the peace candidate. I'm the peace person. Yes. Guys, remember this? This wasn't that long ago. May 6th, 2024. Tulsi Gabbard says pro-Palestinian college protesters have become, quote, puppets of radical Islamist organizations, contradicting the United States' ideology of freedom. Quote, these protests aren't actually calling for peace. Oh, really, Tulsi? Gabbard said during a Monday appearance on News Nation's Cuomo, I'm concerned about it because leaders in the West are not combating it, unfortunately. President Biden seems to be afraid to be called an Islamophobe. She was reacting to anti-genocide protests in the U.S., and she smeared everybody who was involved in those protests as pro-Hamas, as doing the bidding of radical Islamist organizations. She says these protests where they're calling to end the genocide, they're actually not pro-peace protests. Oh, really? Oh, really? So what are they doing? We had hundreds of thousands of Americans marching in the street because they support Hamas, because they supported the killing of civilians on October 7th. No, it 100% was anti-genocide protests. People saw the bodies of women and children piling up from bombing campaigns on civilian infrastructure in Gaza, and they said, you know what, maybe my money and my weapons should not be funding this, should not be going there. She supports Israel after everything, after the 186,000 dead Palestinians in Gaza, according to the Lancet, the medical journal. 186,000. Women and children killed, hospitals bombed, schools bombed, people being starved to death. Kids getting their arms and legs amputated with no anesthesia. She supports Israel after all of that, and she has the nerve to call somebody else a warmonger. You're a fucking warmonger. If you still support Israel, you still want to send money and weapons there, you're more than a warmonger. You're pro-genocide. How about that, Tulsi? Oh, I'm so anti-war. I'm so anti-war. Remember when Joe Biden pulled out of Afghanistan and the entire media landscape started shitting on him relentlessly? Politicians in both parties started shitting on him relentlessly. And Tulsi Gabbard, who had been running around saying nonstop, we got to get out of Afghanistan, when Biden actually did it, where was she? Nowhere to be found. Didn't say a fucking word. Was quiet. Because, it's so unpopular at the time when the pullout is messy. It's so unpopular to come out and say, you know what, that's actually the right move. Sorry, fuck off. She didn't have the balls. She didn't have the nerve to come out and say, yeah, that thing I've been calling for, I stand by it, and I'm happy that Joe Biden pulled out of Afghanistan. Did she say a goddamn word when Joe Biden reduced our drone war massively? She had been ripping the drone war forever. Soon as Biden massively reduces it, crickets. Nothing. And then she had the nerve to, as she goes after the queen of the warmongers, Hillary Clinton, who, by the way, Hillary Clinton is a warmonger, and I'm against her. But as she goes after the queen of warmongers, she goes, I support Trump. We've got to vote for Trump. You want to talk about an elite cabal of warmongers? Donald Trump, John Bolton, Mike Pompeo, Gina Haspel, they're all warmonger neocon dipshits. What did Trump do when he was in office? Remember this, guys? I've given you this list before. It's never been more relevant than now, because Trump even bragged about this in his acceptance speech at the RNC. He says, I have started no new wars. He increased drone strikes 432%. He kept us in Iraq and Afghanistan. He bombed Syria and bragged about stealing Syrian oil. He assassinated Soleimani, a top Iranian commander who was in the field fighting ISIS, which, by the way, led to retaliatory attacks. He tried to coup Venezuela. He ripped up the Iran agreement. Trump armed Saudi Arabia as they did a genocide in Yemen and then vetoed a bill to cut off the weapons. So Bernie Sanders and Mike Lee got together and said, let's stop giving Saudi Arabia weapons because they're killing innocent people. Trump said, no, I want to keep giving them the weapons. I'm going to veto your bill. He took the pro-genocide position. Trump said he wants war with Mexico in his second term. He wants to designate the drug cartels as terrorist organizations and go in there and do airstrikes, even if the government and the president of Mexico say we don't want that. He says that Biden isn't supporting Israel enough, and he's not, quote, letting them finish the job. So he's going to the right of Biden on that issue. And as I just pointed out, he hired John Bolton, Mike Pompeo, and Gina Haspel and let them run his foreign policy. So here's Tulsi Gabbard going after an, quote, elitist cabal of warmongers that she's so opposed to. But Donald Trump, the guy you support, is part of the elitist cabal of warmongers. He's part of the neocon foreign policy. And there is no other opinion. There is no other perspective to that. There is no, like, I have a different view of the Trump time in office. No, that's not a thing. These things that I just laid out for you here are stone cold facts. And you either acknowledge them and say, hey, he is part of an elitist cabal of warmongers, or you're a fucking liar. You're just a liar. You're lying. There is no other, well, if you look at it from this way, maybe he's anti-war. No, that's not a thing. He was pro-war, and he will be again. And he will be again. So she has some fucking nerve, man. She's still at this late day trying to, I'm the anti-war candidate tap dance. Are you fucking kidding me? You support Israel. You support the leading genocidal nation on the planet. You are a warmonger. You are part of the elitist cabal of warmongers. Spare me your fucking sanctimony over anybody else. This is what happened with RFK too. RFK did a press conference the other day, and he was asked about Kamala Harris, and he went after Kamala Harris and talked about how she's a warmonger, right? And it's like, homie, right after you do this press conference, you're gonna go pick up your pom-poms and do a little cheerleading dance for fucking Netanyahu to keep killing more than 186,000 Palestinians. I don't want to hear from you. You're in no position to say anybody else is a warmonger when you have the blood of Palestinians on your hands and you're happy about it. So, geez, what a fraud. God, what a fucking fraud. Just insufferable, man. Her shtick is so tired. She's such a fucking grifter, and it's never been more clear. All right, guys, that's the show. Got a little heated there. That's the show. I love y'all very much. Everybody do me a big favor. Subscribe to the channel. That helps out massively. Costs you absolutely nothing. And that's all I got for you guys, man. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Everybody have a great rest of your day. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.